But at the same time, I mean, like, every community is toxic. Have you seen the UFC YouTube chat for like the weigh-ins, or like the YouTube chat on like the MMA hour, or any esports competition? It's ruthless. People are horrible to each other. You know, like they'll win and get up on stage and like stick it in the opponent's face immediately. Like, these guys want to win the ultra competitive because they're competing, you know, for money in like a very intense form of, you know, like not necessarily physically intense, but mentally it's very intense. So yeah, they're gonna get into, you know, disagreements and arguments.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to GameKheyl. I'm Naveed, and today we have ourselves a true legend of Combat Esports Community. We have ourselves Bayliun. Sir, how are we doing today?
Very good, very good. Little tired. We just got done with the ESFL 136, so the end of like the seasonal break for the ESFL. So yeah, I'm a little tired. It's getting a little late, but I'm ready to have a chat.
Yeah, I will not fault you for that because the card itself was amazing. We saw a new champion being crowned in Blake Tyler. Congratulations to him, Zayaf. Again, a former double champ. He will come around. He's definitely going to be there at an event that we're all waiting for. We'll talk about that in a bit. And also, before we jump right into the interview, I think there are a few congratulations in order. Some of our guests from the Tekken community, one of them namely being Faith Khan, made it to CEO gaming competition. And not only did he just make it there, he was in the top 4. So congratulations to him on being successful there. And also a big shout out to Arsalan Ash, the winner of CEO gaming in Tekken, and also his teammate Farzeen. 3 Pakistanis in top 8 could not be proud, considering the fact that it is an amazing story that's captivated the world of esports. So a lot of congratulations from the Pakistani community that is there. And moving forward, we have some amazing guests lined up from the Tekken community in Pakistan, and we're going to make sure that you get the recognition that you deserve, and hopefully more to come. Coming back to our guest and Combat Esports community, Bayliun, you've been a part of so many different initiatives. Just to name a few, you are an MMA analyst for MMA On Point. Love your work there. We've also seen you as a part of ESFL as the production head. We had Zed Hunter a few weeks ago, and he spoke volumes about what your contribution means to that entire initiative. Furthermore, you are a content creator through and through. You're someone who's been involved with that, and a big feather on your cap. You are a game changer by in all stretches of imagination. Someone who's involved with EA. And also, talking about your involvement with EA, you are an esports UFC commentator as well. So there's a lot of accolades there. There's a lot of things that we need to cover today, and we're going to get right into that. But starting off, we need to talk about the origins. We need to talk about how all of this come to be.
Sure.
Your interest, especially when it comes to Combat Esports. How did that come about? So if you could fill us in.
How did the ESFL start, basically, right? Is that
basically your experiences with the Combat Esports, and perhaps then towards...
Sure. I mean, I suppose, so the first, I suppose I tried to play fighting games all the time growing up because fighting's awesome, obviously. But I think the first time I got my hands on a UFC game was Undisputed 2. And I had the demo, and then I picked up Undisputed 3 when it came out. And then I had been playing the Fight Night series, and then EA MMA, and then EA UFC. And then by the end of UFC 2, I had streamed it a little bit because I'd been doing a bit of like streaming at that point, maybe for 2 or 3 years. And I remember writing on my New Year's resolution going into that year ahead of the release of UFC 3 that I wanted to like get involved in UFC Esports, which, you know, was pretty ambitious considering there was no UFC Esports, not anything that was like, you know, like a promotional form that people could like consume. It was a lot of like forums and text-based stuff and things like that. There was certainly communities out there. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess the first esport I'd ever seen was a game called Heroes of New Earth, which is kind of like a MOBA, right? So it's similar to League of Legends or Dota, which is Defense of the Ancients. I guess no one calls it that. But anyway, I'd seen some of it in maybe 2010, 2011 at university. And there was a caster called Breaky CPK, who was an amazing esports caster. And I'd never seen esports before. And we used to watch it all the time. And I really kind of learned about how the industry works. what an esports season looks like, what a league looks like, what it's like with, the meta game and the shifts around that. And so I really, really enjoyed that. And I used to mess about a little bit when we used to play like in like our friends groups, and I would do like the casting and do that position. And it was really fun, but I never really knew if I would be able to do it any further than that, I guess. But yeah, UFC 2 had been out. UFC 3 was coming up. I wanted to get involved in the esports scene, and I was just looking on Twitch in sort of like ahead of the beta, I think. Oh man, the timelines are all crossed up because now I feel like, did we do anything for it? It's bad that I can't actually remember what happened, but whatever. I saw Z Hunter was running an event. I reached out to him hoping I would get a response because I had no idea if he would reply. I sent him a whisper on Twitch. So I was just like, I hope this guy reads this. And he did. And then, we just started a dialogue and started talking. And then we just went from there, really.
All right. So that's essentially where you joined ESFL. Now, considering the fact that ESFL is now the premier combat esports organization out there, and of course, from the starting point that you guys took to where you are now, that has to be a journey within itself. So if you could just let us know how that entire process came to be and how's it looking now?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, so I reached out to Z. I'd seen that he obviously knew enough players to be able to start a league. And having seen previous esports, I kind of have in my mind, like, this is how they run it, right? They have like a desk, and then they have the gameplay, and then they have like highlights, and then they have a starting screen and an ending screen and all this stuff. And I've been streaming for a while, so the concept of like different scenes to me was just like the easy way to do it. So I kind of had the meeting with Z Hunter, explained to him, right, okay, this is how I think we should run it. This is an example of how I would split up the broadcast. This is how we can actually capture the fights, because at that time there was no way to watch the fights. But I guess Z had done something because he had run an event before that. So I guess the idea of restreaming the fights, which we still have to do, by the way, the competitor has to stream, and then we have to go and watch their stream and capture the screen because there's no spectator mode. So I think that was already going on. But yeah, we basically took it from there. I brought him the idea of like, this is how the product can look, right? We have like the different scenes that we go between. And then, we had our first show, which I remember. And I remember just talking a million miles an hour and just like being like, partly excitement, partly because I guess I was still trying to figure out how to do esports commentary because I'd never done it before. And it was a slow, long process. I told Z and Boss Man as well was there at the start as well, of course. Us three kind of, we were having the initial talks and then we went from there. It was a slow process, and it required like constant commitment without like any wavering in the faith of the future of the product. And, it was sliding a little bit here and there, that we had like, especially after our first season or maybe after our second season for UFC 3, right at the start, things kind of went down a little bit. The sort of overall effort kind of dropped off and the hype died down. UFC 4 brought everything back in a big way. But it's hard when a game cycle starts to fade out, people start to lose interest a little bit. But it was a lot of commitment from everyone involved. There are so many people who were there at the start that aren't really around anymore, but like staff members that really put in some hard work. And we used to do them at ungodly hours as well. I remember having to start the broadcast at like 3 a.m. my time, and then we'd finish at 8 a.m. And I've been commentating all night. And I did that for a long time, for like a year or something stupid. I kind of knew, and anyone else who stuck around also knew that pretty much is what it was going to take to get this thing off the ground. And it's nice to see that we kind of went first, and then there's so many other like leagues that have popped up. And those leagues have people that compete in them, and they have people who do jobs within those. So it's kind of like we kind of created like a little network of, I don't know, the industry. I don't know. It feels pretty good. I'm very proud of what we've done. Yeah.
I think this is one subject that you touched on, and that is a lot of different leagues popping up. We've had a conversation with Z Hunter about this, and he had a very interesting answer that he went through an entire journey of acceptance towards what these leagues entail. So just your 2 cents on this. How do you feel about new competition coming up for especially in the combat esports circuit?
Yeah, I mean, when it first happened, I remember having like the conversation with Z because he was a bit concerned. You know, it's like these motherfuckers are copying us, and I was like, okay, man. Like, first of all, that's a good thing. Second of all, like this is what we want because we're building an entire community. It's not just about us; it's about like the community at large. And of course, there's going to be people who see what we do and want to do their own version of it. Like, it's not so much they're trying to compete with us as we've inspired them to do something similar to what we're doing within their own community. So to me, it's awesome. Like 100%, not just rising tides lift all boats, but we're creating an esports industry. There was no industry for the MMA games, even for the combat sports games, really. And now there is. And yeah, like there's no reason to do it alone. Like there's loads of other people. It's just more exposure and more people taking part and more fighters. And yeah, it's fantastic. The more the merrier, 100%.
That's really good to know. But, you know, there's something very concerning when it comes to the content side of UFC, or so to say, Combat Esports, because whenever you look at the streaming numbers on Twitch, they've started dwindling down quite a bit when it comes to this game in particular. So if I were to ask you, as someone who has been in and around the Combat Esports community, the game itself, and also Twitch, so do you think you can pin it down to a few reasons as to why that is happening?
Yeah, I mean, some games have a Twitch community and some games just don't. And just if they don't, it doesn't mean those games don't get played or they don't have an online community. But it definitely is a reflection on that. You know, there's a smaller player base, but you know, the UFC game has some video game franchises for sports have been around like longer than the UFC has existed, right? Or MMA, commercial MMA has existed. So obviously, there's a lot of catching up to do. But like, again, to me, like we have nothing but time for EA to continue to like work on the product to make it better and also open it up to esports by including things like a spectator mode and stuff like that. But in terms of why it doesn't do so well on Twitch, I don't know. I think the majority of content creators who are passionate about the game realize that the audience is bigger on YouTube. And that predominantly is because of, you know, the initial growth of channels like Martial Mind, who's been creating combat sports content for years and has built a massive community. So obviously there's already a community over on YouTube. It's easier to go and pull from that existing community than to create one fresh on Twitch. And I don't think that Twitch necessarily like cultivates sports games very well, real life sports games. FIFA does very well. NBA does very well. Occasionally the NFL game's up there, but only really when esports is brought into it. So I think if anything, esports is going to be what brings the numbers on Twitch up. And it's just a case of generationally getting those new content creators to move to Twitch instead of YouTube, which then you come down to the individual monetization of the platforms. You know, it's really hard if you're a full-time Twitch streamer to commit to a game that doesn't have a community. So you have to like reverse engineer the community by giving them a reason to tune in, like special events, like big live events that we're doing, or the UFC even just like trying to foster the growth of it as well. So yeah, it's down to the content creators. And then I think the people at the top to create those events on Twitch, bring people into it.
I think one of the things that I may, you can disagree with, but hear me out first. So what struck to me with your answer is perhaps when you talk about sports simulators such as UFC, FIFA, NBA or NFLs, the only way to draw a substantial amount of community or draw an audience towards your own content is to get involved in esports yourselves. Do you think that's perhaps the reason why people are drawn towards competitive esports, or do you think that kind of bottoms down to people not having enough personality to showcase what the product is all about? So do you think that would be the case, or is there something else?
No, I don't know. I think it go down to a culture thing. I think culturally, you know, sport and gaming, they definitely go hand in hand. And there's like people who love and appreciate both. Gaming is like massively accepted now on a commercial basis, but there's still two different branches of entertainment in a way. And I don't necessarily feel like the sports side of gaming has a massive impact on the gaming world. There's so many other reasons people game rather than to have the sports simulation, which is like in its own way a unique piece of like gaming content that people go to and enjoy. Like even something like Football Manager, you know, thousands of people play that, but lots of people don't necessarily watch it. So I think in terms of the sports community and the content they consume, I don't think live streams necessarily is like a form of content that usually appeals to them. I think there's probably more the YouTube side of things, because that's where you get your sports news outlets as well, which are also growing that side of the sport. So yeah, I mean, I think that's maybe a reason why, but again, maybe like you said, I don't know if it's a personality problem. I mean, it's just like, if you're looking at a realistic perspective, your job as a content creator is to make a living creating content. You're going to make a bigger living on YouTube than you are on Twitch, unless there's like a massive change, or like you said, esports injects something into that community.
So touching on the subject, you mentioned content creation itself. And sir, you've been involved in it for a fairly decent amount of time. Whenever you're on stream, there is a significant amount of individuals that watch those streams. So you may have been able to crack the code, so to say. So if it were up to you, and looking back at your body of work, is there an advice you would like to give yourself a few years ago that would have perhaps propelled you even quicker, or maybe there's something in retrospect you would have liked to change?
I don't know about propelling any quicker, because like, I don't even want to think about what could have happened to make that happen. There's so many like chance variables in any industry, right? As well as content creation. And also one thing I can appreciate after like 6 years is that like I've put the work in, right? You have that knowledge. So no matter what kind of situation you get into, you can fall back on the fact that regardless of anything, I have this body of work. I know how much time I've put in. I've refined my skill set over time, which is, again, the same in any industry. And now I've forgotten the question. I'm so sorry.
So essentially the question was, if there was any advice you would like to give yourself 6 years ago, what would that be?
Oh, man, I don't know. I think, Twitch is also a timing thing. People who've been there at the start of Twitch obviously had a lot of success because there was less competition as time has gone on. Like when I started streaming, I did something which I don't think you could even do now. Like I just showed up and just started streaming every single day without fail, and eventually built a community. But I can't tell someone to go and do that and say you're going to have the same success that I did, because the thing's so saturated now. You're going to be at the bottom of a list of nobody unless you can find a very specific gaming category, which is small enough that you're going to get noticed, but has enough of a community to actually lift you somewhere. So I don't have any advice. No, I just do the same thing. Everything is moving in a good direction. So yeah. And I don't think that would have happened without having to have put this much time in. So yeah, I don't really think there's anything I could say.
Perhaps just staying consistent with what you're doing. And
yeah, I just feel like just keep going and just keep believing in yourself. You'll get somewhere maybe.
All right. So there are a lot of other things that you're involved in, and perhaps the most noticeable thing whenever I go through your profile, that would be an MMA analyst with MMA on point. To be honest, that's one of my favorite channels when it comes to getting knowledge on a lot of things when it comes to MMA itself. I've been a fan of this sport for 16 years, and whenever I go to that channel, I learn something new every day. Yeah. So
me too.
So how did that come about? And secondly, what is it like to be a part of that team?
Excuse me. How did it come about? Right. Well, I guess Jason just kind of found my channel. I can't remember if it was through the UFC Esports or if it was through the ESFL. I think it was through the UFC Esports. Once UFC 4 dropped, a lot of gears started turning, right? Because in the lead up to that, I've got to thank Z Hunter for helping me get into the Gamechangers community program. So like that happened, and then that gave me early access to the game, which let me boost my profile on YouTube, right? Because I got some content out the door like a week early, which was like super lucky to do so. Again, it's all about those opportunities, right? So yeah, and then so that happened, and then EA were very interested in just kind of communicating with us a little bit more at the ESFL and trying to work and get a bit more of like a pairing, a partnership going. Like we had like little banners inside the game at one point, right, on the game menu, stuff like that. And then the UFC, because the game was out more, so you had a lot of well, I think it also goes hand in hand with the fact that UFC launched their Twitch channel, really. So they did that. They launched a Twitch channel, which they had their moderators who were going around to content creators within the UFC 4 community, just trying to help like interact and boost with them. And that's when they found out about the ESFL. So UFC 4 really like kickstarted a whole new bunch of projects across the board. And I'm sure UFC 5 will do the same thing. Or, like obviously the game will. And it's good that we have 10 more years of these games, I suppose. I mean, EA, they're working on it. They're working on it. Anyway, so I think Jason had found me through the UFC side of things. MMA On Point were looking for someone else to bring on board for script writing and VA work. I think the way he told me is that he watched one of the events and he was just like, this is the guy we should get. He suits like what we need. And so they reached out. We had a meeting. I had to do like a trial for the voiceover, and then I had to do a trial for like script writing. And then, just started small with little bits of work here and there. And then I was in Holland at the time because I just spent 2020 over there. I came back to England. And that's where these guys are now. Obviously, Jason's moved to England. So they're trying to set themselves up, really as like a cultural MMA hub in Europe, and try and work with as many fighters across the EU as possible. And again, man, I don't know what to say. I guess lucky that he came across that stream. Hard work and, refining my skill set as a broadcaster, I guess, over a period of time definitely helped as well. All of the work we put into the ESFL since 2016 helped create that opportunity. So yeah, man, I guess just luck, isn't it? Luck. But that's like hard work. I think loads of people have said that on this stream, hard work and opportunity for luck. So
I think more than luck, there's another thing, just being in the right place at the right time. And that, again, boils down to consistency. And speaking of being at the right place at the right time, something happened while you were streaming Skyrim once. And that led to the creation of perhaps UFC Esports. So that's actually the version of the story that Zed told. So in your words, how was that? How did that idea incept, and how did the things pan out? Because again, being a part of this community for a fairly, I think I've been in and around this community for the last 2 to 3 years, and it was a especially proud moment for all of us, for UFC to recognize us as individuals who are trying to make something happen, and then for them to recognize and make it happen was very special for us. So what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask Z Hunter, I feel like in our first or our second meeting that the three of us had ever, that was like literally on the table. It was like, we're just going to make a product that's so good and so like commercially professional that can be used by the EA. It can be used by the UFC. That was like the game plan going in. So yeah, it was super like, I guess, a big moment for the community when it did happen. I don't know really. I guess the guy was one of the moderators for the UFC Twitch channel, had frequented my channel because he's a fan of Skyrim. At one point I was like, I guess one of the biggest Skyrim streamers on Twitch. Not that that's a big category. But if you like Skyrim and you watch Twitch, then you probably had come through at some point. But and then I was finishing a Skyrim stream, and it was such a good Skyrim stream that he was very upset that it was ending. And when I said I had to go do the ESFL because, oh, sorry guys, I got to go. He asked what that was. He saw that we were running, the community side of things. Again, it's just a chance encounter. He whispered me on Twitch, and I just started a dialogue with him. And then I think he gave me an email, or I gave him my email. And then we just hooked up, and then, we just started like a Discord conversation, and then we just had a meeting, and then, it just all went from there. But I think the biggest thing was, for a couple of years, we'd really focused on EA and trying to get EA on board. And there's a lot of walls with that because EA are a very corporate company. And even if we have direct communication to the dev team, and the dev team absolutely love what we're doing and want to support it in every way they can, they can't necessarily do that. So we'd focused a lot on EA, and all of a sudden UFC were just like, well, we'll pay you to put on events, we'll help you, get this thing off the ground. We want to like offer prizes for people and promote this. And we were like, oh, okay. All of a sudden we don't have to worry about EA so much because UFC are on board. So it was really nice. Yeah.
So there must have been a few challenges while trying to put this whole thing together, considering the fact that EA or UFC themselves are big corporations that, again, when you're trying to engage in them, there are some terms that you have to oblige with. And the community that you talk about when it comes to UFC is something that I would say they like to experience things vicariously. So when they see a Conor McGregor acting out the way he does, you would want to replicate that in some way, shape, or form. Against you cannot physically manifest that, but perhaps in your demeanor, in your attitude. There's a lot of banter that goes on in this community, sometimes which is very productive. Most of the times, it has a tendency of going a little toxic. So
Right, yeah.
when you talk about putting on a show for UFC and considering the fact that the community may have the tendency to go off the rails at times. So how do you navigate, or how do you create that balance? How do you go about regulating the community in those events?
I mean, first of all, you got to give a shout out to all the moderators in the chat, because I think they've done a really good job, like the ESFL team on that side of things. But at the same time, I mean, like, every community is toxic. Have you seen the UFC YouTube chat for like the weigh-ins, or like the YouTube chat on like the MMA hour, or any esports competition? It's ruthless. People are horrible to each other. Like, they'll win and get up on stage and like stick it in the opponent's face immediately. Like, these guys want to win. They're ultra competitive because they're competing, for money in like a very intense form of, like, not necessarily physically intense, but mentally it's very intense. So yeah, they're gonna get into disagreements and arguments. And the community, I think, has actually turned around quite a lot. I think we've done a good job trying to wrangle it in, because early on we noticed that was a massive problem, right? So you have to get rid of like the bad apples and stuff like that, because if one person's, it's like fostering any community really. If there's one person that's making it bad for everyone else, you have to ask them to move on, really, because you're just going to make it worse for everyone. But yeah, I don't think it's too bad. I think it's moving in the right direction. But I think the MMA community as a whole are just awful people. Not everybody, but like, man, some of the stuff people say is goddamn awful.
No, I completely agree with that. So on the subject of EA as a corporation and your collaboration with EA, it's not just limited to you being one of the commentators for their Combat Esports Leagues, but you've also been involved in the Gamechangers, like you've mentioned. So we've had Romero, we've also had another guest here who spoke at length about their experiences with Gamechangers, which at some point was very frustrating for them, because a lot of their changes that they recommended were did not come to fruition. But in certain cases, the learning curve was very steep. There was a lot of elements of understanding how the development thing works. So there was a bit of empathy, but a little bit of frustration as well. So in your opinion, how do you see that? How was your experience like? And if you could relate to that, to the guest that we've had earlier.
So I got brought into the Gamechanger program quite late. I think about a week, maybe 2 weeks out from the beta. I was brought on board. So everybody else a lot of these guys had already been in it since maybe UFC 2 or before that. And then I got brought in late anyway. So I kind of played catch up. So I gave as much feedback as I could, especially early on. But as the process wore on, like you said, I've got a lot of other responsibilities as well. So I tried to check for as long as I could, but probably about 3 or 4 months, I was as active as I could be. After that, you have to give all of the like props to people like Romero. Romero is like probably one of the best game changers ever. I mean, the guy takes video footage, puts it in, shows the devs exactly what's going wrong, explains it to them. Like, that's another level. Like, I can't put myself up there with people like Romero in terms of what they bring to the table. But definitely, I was able to identify a bunch of things that I hoped could contribute in some ways as well and bring some MMA knowledge. But I enjoy the discussion format in there, because there was just constantly new ideas going on in like a big group chat. But like you said, I think, actually, I remember I can't really talk too much about it because you're not supposed to discuss really what goes on. But I remember an instant where, something like that, where there was a miscommunication or the Gamechangers didn't feel like they were being listened to. And I tried to like side with the devs a little bit, play a little devil's advocate as to like the corporate situation. And I got shut down by like a couple of the other Gamechangers immediately, because like it was kind of something that they had been dealing with and were upset with. And because I came a bit later, I didn't really understand what it had been like previously and how different things were now. So I kind of got, checked and educated on that, which was nice to know, because I was like, listen, I just got here. I think there was a problem, but I think it goes back. Some people feel worse about it because they've seen what it used to be like, and apparently things are a lot different. But I mean, I can't speak too much on it. And even if I could, I don't think I'm supposed to. So.
I completely understand that, being someone who is working in the corporate sector, absolute confidentiality, nothing more, nothing less. Speaking of something more when it comes to the community itself, there is a groundbreaking event that's going to happen in the second week of January, and that is ESFL Live. I mean, again, there's a lot of excitement behind it. It's going to happen in Las Vegas. You can definitely fill us on the details of that event. It's going to be a 2-day event, and some of the biggest names in the Combat Esports community will be showing up there. We hope to see a lot of individuals who can make it there to be there. And for you, sir, someone who's been able to put it together along with everyone else who's involved with the ESFL, how does that feel? Does it feel like a accumulation of something? Does it feel like a big, let's say, a landmark moment in
yeah, for sure. But because we started from nothing, we've had so many landmark moments, and I'm always the one that's manifesting, like in the chat. I'm like, this is going to happen. Like, this is what we're aiming for. And, you know, stuff keeps moving forward. So it's really good to see that, like, we've been able to set goals and continuously hit them, you know, like work with the EA and then work with the UFC. And then now this was the next stage, really, the next evolution. But obviously it was something we wanted to do from day one. I mean, the real inspiration for me was the EA MMA Esports League they used to run inside of the game, like every Thursday night or whenever it was. And you had, you know, competitors showing up. It was live streamed in game. They had their own camps. They had like intro videos and it was CAFs. It was really, really fun. So, but then aside from that, they also did the UFC 2 live event, right? For UFC 200. So we already knew like live events existed. They've done one before. We got to just try and create enough buzz to get back to that, or failing that, get to a point where we can put on live events, which wasn't somewhere we were going to be for a couple of years, just because it costs like money to run a live event. But we were, approached by Prospect Esports. And they just explained, you know, not Prospect Esports, Prospect by Sports Illustrated. And they explain what they do, how they came about, what they're trying to do, what direction they're moving in, and how much they sort of had faith in the ESFL as a product and just like the whole promotional like package, what it looks like, how it comes, the entertainment factor. And so they kind of wanted to just, you know, get us to the next stage, which is just fantastic to find a company, one, that actually runs esports events, and then two, is willing to put their neck out a little bit in order to make these things happen, in order to like create a community, because they know as well as we do, you know, we just got to get one event and then two and then three. And then hopefully by like 4, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now we actually have a turnout that's consistently showing up, and now we're spilling over into other things. And then you just build from there. So they're very much on board with the idea that, like, you know, we're starting something from the bottom, and this is the first of many, which hopefully will grow into something more. So yeah, again, super lucky that they reached out. It's been like a last minute thing, because we had discussed obviously with them in the initial meetings what we wanted to do, run live events. This opportunity kind of came up last minute. There was some an opportunity at the HyperX, which is one of the biggest, you know, esports stadiums in the world. There's a HyperX opportunity. It's in January. You know, let's try and get it done. And we know it's been a crazy whirlwind month of prep and trying to get everything ready, and all of like the communication on their side and getting all the website and registration set up and all the graphics, but it's come through and registrations are open. And yeah, I am optimistic that we will get a fair few competitors, and that we will, this show is going to be good. I mean, I get to do commentary with Rob, right, in person. I've wanted to do that for a while. We don't have like each other, like canceling each other out when we shout, you know, we can like feed off the energy, keep it consistent. HyperX is a great venue, but I just want the community to show up, you know, because a lot of people have given a lot over the years, a lot of stuff to this. So it's like an opportunity as well for the community to give back a little bit just by showing up and enjoying themselves. That's all they need to do. So hopefully they do.
I think just the face value of seeing you and Bruce Lee Rob sitting next to each other and screaming your lungs out, I think that's all the gratification one can look for.
Yeah.
Again, props to Bruce Lee Rob and you for putting on brilliant commentary experiences for all of us listening week in, week out. So that's there. And on the subject of recognizing a few individuals, there must be a few individuals who must have helped you out through this journey, people you've collaborated with, or even people you believe we need to look out for, need to watch out for. If there are any shout outs, sir, now's the time.
Oh man, if I start shouting people out, I'm going to forget people though. That's the problem. I'm going to be like, I forgot about this person. Man, there's so many people who've been there from day one and just put so much time in. But people come and they go and they dip in and out. I mean, we've had some really massive additions in Luba. Luba arrived, helped the team out massively, went away for a little bit, but has come back and just taken like such a big role within the organization. Just a role that needed filling, because when we started this thing, like the three of us, it was okay. Then as things got bigger, we obviously had to bring on a voluntary basis, the same as, us three did, as many people as possible. But, we started to fill the other roles, and we've got Bayliun now as well, who's a massive part of the team, who can bring like his day job into the business side of things to ESFL as well. So not only are we picking up people for their passion and skills in the community, but also it's like that combined with other skill sets that are helping it grow as a business. So yeah, Bayliun and Lube are definitely two guys who have been really instrumental across this last year in helping us get to the next level and take the step into more of a business, because at this point we're making business deals, like we're there now. So things have to be done properly. Yeah. So yeah, that's important as well. But yeah, man, just shout out to all the fighters as well. And any content creators that are making UFC 4 and combat sports their priority, because it takes a long time, man. And like content creation is definitely not easy. Like there are other jobs that are easier and more rewarding and less stressful and less, unstable. So if you are a content creator and you're putting out content for combat sports, well, that's great. You just have to keep working at it as much as you can. But yeah, I can't do any more shouts than that because I will just forget people. I'm terrible. My memory's bad. So
that's perfectly fine. So I think there's one thing that it would be a big mistake to not ask you this question, because a very underrated part of going about streaming or going about content creation is production. The quality it takes, the time it takes, the dedication it takes, it has to be there. And some people go about it with trial and error. For some people, they take up a lot of advice. But for you, in case of someone like you, how do you attack this challenge? Because now you're essentially leading an entire production of an entire league, and you've also been able to create content for a consistent period of time. So how do you go about going with production? Do you have like a checklist in mind? Do you have certain procedures? What's the way to go for you?
I think it's just been a constant evolution, right? We got like the foundation down, and then we just kept adding new graphics or new scenes or new little bits of technology that let us do things like instant replays and like cameras in the broadcast. And up until really the start of this year, I'd been running the OBS and switching the scenes and changing whilst doing the commentary, which was fine. But now we have Fekit, who's our number one guy that runs all the production in the background, the broadcast. And he's just been absolutely fun. I should have given Fekit a shout out, to be fair. Fekit is amazing. Like, I do not like having to sit there and just run production for like 3 hours and not like talk. That's just a job. That's not fun for me. I don't like doing that. So I only ever did it when I got to commentate. But Fekit's happy to do it, does a fantastic job, takes the production to another level because me and Rob are just free to concentrate on what we're doing, and he can just feed information in our ear. So that's really brought that up. But I guess it's just like constantly just finding ways to improve the visual appeal of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. You just upgrade everything over time. I mean, like you said, like, I guess for my stream, the production, again, is just something I've worked on slowly over time. Like, this camera, took me like 4 years to get it right. Like I slowly upgrade everything as you go, reinvest in yourself, I guess.
By virtue of what you've said, I think we're on the right track, because when we started off, we only had a single laptop. Now we've gotten ourselves a camera, a nice ring light, and a microphone. So hopefully we're just going to keep on adding things once we get there. And one of the ways to help us out with that is with our Patreon. We're going to talk about that later. But before that, so coming towards the business end of this interview, I mean, for someone as ambitious as you are, obviously there must be benchmarks, there must be goals, there must be landmarks that you want to achieve for a certain period of time. So if there are certain goals for yourself that you would like to share with us here at GameKheyl, would you mention any for all of the endeavors that you're involved in?
I mean, I don't the only reason I agreed to come on here is because you have done such a good job, helping promote the community, and obviously have been consistent with the content, which takes a lot of dedication. So I'm on here out of respect. I'm very hesitant about wanting to talk about myself and what my ambitions are. But like, I have no limit. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll just go for it. So if someone has to take like, John Anik's job, then that's as far as I'd go, right? Just setting my eyes on that and just trying to work towards that. But, there are tons of fantastic commentators all across the world, young and middling and, in terms of age, not as in ability, that could have that position. But that's as far as I would just keep trying to push myself, right? I'm not really going to. Why stop? I don't know. I just keep going, right? So whatever. So yeah, I mean, UFC commentary, ESFL becomes like a global esports that we can run live events for. I don't know, man. Like continue within MMA on Point. MMA on Point is gonna be huge if we can just like keep doing what we're wanting to do. They're trying to expand into like a big media company within the EU and just get all these fighters on board. And they've had such a good year. This year, especially coming out of the pandemic, so many guests coming in the studio to do their live companion. So to be a part of that has been fantastic. Like you said, Paddy the Baddie, like, got to meet that guy, so there's been a lot of opportunities in that. Again, I'm just super lucky. So in terms of ambitions, yeah, I mean, there is no limit, I guess. I'm a Slytherin, so I just, I don't want to be selfish about it, but I'll go for it,
I think in terms of aspirations, maybe one of the ways you're approaching it is just having fun with the journey and trying to be the best version of yourself at every single stop.
100%, yeah.
So the relentless pursuit of perfection is essentially what it is.
That's probably a bad way of putting it. Yeah.
Well, this is, and the reason why I quote this is because this is exactly what we're trying to do here at GameKheyl. I mean, we've gotten a lot of love from the UFC community, from the fight game community in Pakistan and elsewhere. Again, big shout out to all of you for supporting what we've been able to do here. And again, if you want to take your support to the next level, we have our Patreon set up. If that's not something you wish to do, you can support us by watching the videos. We put on content like this. We have amazing guests like the one we have here today. And again, there are some amazing stories, wonderful stories. In fact, just to share a snippet of a couple of them. So we've had individuals who were streaming live. The police raided them, thinking that they were gambling online. We've had guests who were kicked out of their houses and had to sleep on the streets of their houses just because their families did not allow them to pursue esports. So wow. There are millions of stories out there. We're just trying to capture the best ones and put them out for you. And this is something that we're going to continue for as long as we physically can. So again, your support keeps us going, and we hope to see that over and over a certain period of time. All of our details will be in the link. Our brilliant guest, Bayliun, all of his links will be mentioned in the description as well. And before we part ways, sir, any final thoughts?
No, just keep doing what you're doing, because, there aren't many people throwing any spotlight on this community at all. And so while you have the benefit of obviously being here first, as everything else continues to go around it, this will as well. It's all one big, little network. So it's good.
Again, it was an absolute pleasure to have you here. This man, hopefully, and here for everyone here at GameKheyl, best wishes to him and the team here at ESFL. ESFL Live is going to be amazing. We will be, unfortunately, here in Pakistan, it's going to be very, very tricky for us to make it there in time. However, our thoughts, prayers, and our eyes will be on the event, and we'll have an absolute, I really wish you guys the best. And for everyone watching, I hope you guys, if you guys can go there physically, do that. If you can't, bring your support to the streams, make your voices be heard. And for everyone watching, again, thank you all for your support. We will post more interviews coming forward from the fight game community, from UFC. We've also had streamers from other communities talking about subjects like mental health. We've had guests talking about their experiences in streaming and a lot of other challenges. So we will be covering those stories as well. But as of now, this is Naveed and Bayliun signing out, and hope to see you guys again with another guest real soon. Peace.